Welcome back. Trying to solve yet more chess puzzles. Let's see. I have a check here, which is the first thing that I always look for. I don't know if that's good because, let's see. It might be good because it allows only one legal response, and that is Black's king is forced to move to b7. So bishop to a6, check, forces king to b7. But then, what, if any, follow-up do I have? I don't have much of a follow-up at that point. It doesn't make sense after that to try to capture the bishop because it's protected. I can bring the rook after this, bishop to a6, check first, and the king moves. And then bring my h rook to d1, which would, I think, win the bishop. So maybe that's it, because right now the bishop is guarded by two pieces. But my bishop check forces the king to move, which leaves only one defender on the bishop. And then moving the rook here threatens to win the bishop. I don't think there's any good way to defend that. Moving the bishop would result in a check by taking the rook, and if they captured back, I would capture with my other rook, and that would be checkmate. Well, after the knight blocked and the knight took it, that would be checkmate. That's what I'm going to try, and we'll find out if that works or not. Okay, that was it. I don't think it makes sense to take the bishop first, then take back, and then bring the rook, because then they can take my rook, and yes, I'll get it back, but then I won't have any rooks, right? So I think it makes sense to bring my rook first. Is there anything else? I can bring this knight, but that just is a knight trade, and I'm no better off. I think it's got to be the rook h to d1. Oh, that was it. Okay. This knight has gone here for unknown reasons. What is that knight threatening? Oh, is it trying to block? Is it trying to block my path? Is that the idea? Either way, I win the bishop. If they take back, I win the rook for free. So I can either just get a bishop or get a bishop and a rook for a rook. That's got to be it, right? Okay, that was it. That puzzle was, you almost can't see it because of where the page is. It's just right there. 1747. It says the theme was doubled rook. Okay, I'll accept that. The target time was 22 seconds. Wow, I would have gotten more points if I had gotten it that quickly, but instead it took me 3 minutes. So let's go on to the next puzzle. And don't be surprised if they all take me 3 minutes. Okay. This pawn move is, I guess, threatening my c-pawn, but I could just recapture here. I don't have any, legally I do have a check, but I don't think that's any good. So I don't think I have any checks in this situation. None of my knight can't check. My bishop can't check. My rook is stuck behind the pawn, so sacrifice would not be a good idea because there's no rook to come behind it. I'm a little unsure how to proceed in this situation. So I'm going to pause my recording and think about it for a minute. I've thought of a few other things. For example, I noticed both my queen and my knight are pointed at the f7 square. So, like, just briefly, I thought to put my knight there to threaten the queen, but that doesn't make sense because black also has two pieces guarding that square, the king and the rook. But that led me to realize that the knight is also guarding the other square over here, h7. So I'm wondering if the right move isn't queen to g6, threatening h7 mate. That obviously raises the question, if once I move queen to g6, how is black going to respond? Is there a way they can stop checkmate on h7? I don't think there is. I think the only possible response would be to move the rook. And I don't know, because that would give black's king an escape square. But where would they move it? Move my queen to g6. They're not going to move the rook up, surely, because I can just take it with either one of these two pieces. If they move it over, I don't know how far over they would move it. I would still have the check on h7, and then the king would be able to escape to f8. And then I would have the check on h8, which would force the king out to e7, in which case I would capture this pawn with check, I think. I think that's it, because it's so forcing. They have to respond. If they don't do anything over here and instead do something like capture this pawn or push this pawn or jump in here with a knight or something like that, then that's checkmate. So they have to respond by defending against the checkmate threat. I'm pretty sure they have to respond by moving the rook, in which case I do the check anyway. Although at that point I don't know if I would check or which one I should check on. But anyway, I'm going to try g6. Okay. Oh, they took the knight. That was much smarter than what I was thinking. Okay. Wait. Don't I have another knight to put there? And then I'm still threatening mate. And it doesn't make sense to put the knight there or something, because that knight can take it. Okay, I think it's obvious that I have to take this with my knight. Okay. They moved the rook forward, which is not quite what I expected. For some reason I expected it to go over there. Okay. Well, now I definitely don't want to check on f7, so I should check on h7. If I check on h7, the king cannot move up to f7 because of my knight. It has to go to f8. Has to. In which case I check on h8, pretty sure. Then the king has to go here, in which case I take the pawn as I planned. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Okay. No other move makes sense. For example, this check doesn't make any sense. Taking the pawn now doesn't make any sense. Going back to where I was doesn't make any sense. Everything over here is still, on the left half of the board, is still the same as it was. It's got to be queen to h8 check. Okay. And as I thought, I believe taking the pawn is the best move. If the rook tries to block, I will just capture it because that square is guarded by my knight. If I capture, then the king has two legal moves at that point, in which case I take the rook, I think. Okay, that was the end of the puzzle. All right. That one was rated also in the 1700s, 1744. It does not have a theme, so I'm going to suggest attacking Castled King. Okay. Next. Interesting. This is blocking my check. I had apparently just checked the black king, and now the black is asking for a queen trade. I could do it. Right now I'm down a rook. That's concerning to me. So my initial idea was to go ahead and capture the queen. And when the bishop captures back, I capture the rook. And then we both have dark squared bishops left on the board, and I have a passed pawn that my bishop would be protecting from back there in a reverse direction. That's probably, if I saw this situation in a game and had 5 or 10 seconds to think about it, that's probably what I would do, is capture the queen, allow the trade, take the rook for free, because the king could come after my bishop, but then I just escape back here to where I'm protected. And we would each have a bishop, but I would have an extra pawn, which is this one, and it's a passed pawn. Their bishop would be here and could take that pawn. But see, that leaves me more... Right now I'm a little behind, and that would leave me even. Usually the point of the puzzle is to leave me winning. So I'm going to look for a better move, as if I had much longer than 10 seconds in a game. There is this check, which the queen cannot block. Check on e8. None of the pieces can block that check. So the king would be forced to move. But where would it go? Because from there, my queen would be blocking off these two squares. And my bishop is blocking off these two squares. So the king would only have one legal move. And then would that be checkmate? I think it would. Is that logic impeccable? Check here. Let's make sure. The queen cannot block, possibly. The bishop cannot block, because it doesn't move that direction. The rook obviously cannot block either. This check. Queen blocks off these squares. Bishop blocks off these squares. And of course the pawns are in the way of the other squares. So the king is forced to retreat to h7. And once it does, I think this would be checkmate here. Queen to f7, because my queen would block off all of those squares at that point. That's what I'm going to try. Okay. Oh, the bishop blocks. Oh, but my bishop guards that square. And that was rated 1941. That one was much easier than some of the puzzles that I've had rated in this range. And it also doesn't have a theme, so it must be a new one. Maybe the rating is off. I don't know. Was that made in 3? 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to check made in 3 plus. Okay. Should I do one more? I'm pushing my luck, aren't I? I'm going to try one more. And then this will be the last one, whether I get it right or not. Okay. This is a fairly complex position, although it doesn't look like it's very far from the opening. We've made a couple of pawn moves. The c-pawn has been traded off at some point. So let's say 2 moves for that. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It looks like we're about 9 moves into the game here. Maybe. Maybe one of these pieces moved twice or something. Okay. What do we have? I do have a check, and that's a protected check with the queen behind it. None of white's pieces can attack that square other than the king, but it can't because my queen is protecting the bishop, so the king would have to move. That's interesting. The king would have to move to one of those squares. But that's it. Then what do I have? I don't think... I would not have a follow-up to that check. I don't think. Because, yeah, any of the 3 moves that the king has, I can't do anything after that. Like, I can't bring the queen in as a follow-up, obviously, because white has a bunch of pieces guarding that square. So, it's probably not that. And I think that's the only check available in this position. I did see this, knight to b4, which threatens the queen. And if the queen moves, then I'm threatening a check here and a fork of the king and the rook. And if the queen moves, where's it going to move is another question. Because there the pawn gets it, there the bishop gets it, there the pawn gets it, there the bishop gets it. So it would have to retreat, I think, here. If it retreated. But the problem is it doesn't have to retreat. After I move my knight to b4, threatening the queen, the knight gets out of the way of this bishop, which can capture my bishop with check. But wouldn't I just capture back, leaving my knight here threatening the queen, and it still has nowhere to go? But now it would have somewhere to go because this bishop's out of the way. So then the queen would possibly go here. I need a new color, don't I? The queen would possibly go here to b5, protected by its own knight. But I would still be threatening the fork down there on c2. So I think that's it. Knight to b4, threatening the queen and the fork. Bishop captures my bishop with check. I take back with my king, which inadvertently frees up this rook to come help if it needs to. Boop. Let's put their moves in red. There, here. That gives the queen an escape square, so queen would come here, I'm assuming. But it doesn't have to. It could go back. But I'm guessing it would come here to the vacated square vacated by the bishop on b4, and where it would be protected by its own knight. In that case, I don't know whether it would be better to... Would it be better then to check first and then take the queen after the king moves out of check? I don't know. I'm going to try it because we're almost at 20 minutes, so let's go. That was it, and they did do that. I don't have a choice now. I either have to take it or get out of the way. I think it's silly to not take it, and the king is the only piece I have that can take it. Right? Moving out. If I move out of the way, then I've just lost a bishop. So let's take it. Okay. I'm getting good at this. I predicted where the queen would go. Oh, and that's a check too, so I don't have the option of this. I have to take the queen first, don't I? I don't think it makes sense to just move out of check here. I think I take the queen, and when they take back, they probably... I mean, anybody would take back, and then I check on c2. Please be right. Okay. That's not threatening really anything at this point, so check on C2. Okay, 4 in a row. Nice. Thank you for sticking with me. We didn't have to stop and analyze any of those. That one was rated over 2,000. Oh, the screen is slightly off. Can I move that just a little bit? You can see. Yeah, see that puzzle rating? 2042. That's nice. Okay. And that one had the theme doubled rook. No. We did double the rook here, but that's not the point of the puzzle. So I'm going to downvote that. I could probably stop the video while I do that. But what is the theme? What is the theme? Clearance, sacrifice, decoy, deflection, desperado, discovered attack. I don't think we I mean, I did kind of discover attack when I moved my knight out of the way of the bishop, but it also was a discovered attack for the bishop. I don't know. Maybe I'll let someone else add the theme for that one. But it was not any of these other themes. There's a whole bunch listed down there. Okay. But, well, thank you for watching once again. Again, every one of these that I got right, I set a new record for my puzzle score. That was encouraging. I feel like I've improved since we started this series. See you next time.